Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Woe. Oh man, I am shiny. I'm sorry about the lighting, guys. It now gets dark at a smooth 4 o'clock in the afternoon here in the Central Time Zone, where, like, Nashville, where it sits in the time zone just means it gets dark, like, hella early. So yeah, I'm gonna have to use this little ring light more, and that's gonna make me look shinier. But you know what? I'm dewy. I'm glowing for the gods. Can't you tell? Okay, I have a little more reading vlog for you guys before we jump into the wrap-up, so let's take a look at how these last 2 books went. First up, we have Death at Breakfast by Beth Gutcheon, and then we will have Swimming Home by Deborah Levy. So roll the tape. So we're moving on to book number 4 in this project that so far has not yielded great results in terms of my personal enjoyment, and I can't say that I'm that optimistic about this book. So I am on Death at Breakfast by Beth Gutcheon, and I'm about 10% in, and I would say that this book is not very good. It's not terrible, it's not offensive so far, it feels just like very mediocre. The writing style is something I'm not enjoying. She uses a lot of compound sentences, so like, I don't know how to describe this very well. If you read a lot, you kind of know how, you come to have a certain kind of expectation about how the narrative voice flows. So like, I mean, you have to have some adjustment for every book in terms of like getting used to an author's style, and there's some authors who have like a harder style to kind of get on board with than others, which is fine. I mean, like, if it's someone like Faulkner or Wolfe or like Joyce or whatever, like, sure, you know, like, it's good enough that it's worth having to kind of work at it. This is just like a little incompetent, basically, because as you're reading along, there are natural points where you would expect a sentence to end, and these sentences don't end there. Now, they're not run-on sentences, they're not grammatically incorrect, but they are not pleasing to read, because when you're expecting to have a break, the sentence is continuing. So from that perspective, it's just like, it makes the whole reading experience just like, it feels like work in a way that it shouldn't, because this is like just kind of like a commercial fiction mystery, right? Like, this isn't something that you're supposed to have to work that hard to read. So there's that. I also just find the characters quite caricaturish at this point. I mean, like, it's just not very interesting so far. Pretty mediocre, basically, is my impression thus far. Like I said, I'm only 10% in. So maybe things will pick up, or I'll get into the spirit of things. Yeah, I mean, this is a book that I would DNF if I wasn't doing this, just because I'm, you know, who wants to have to work hard to read commercial fiction? I say that. It's not like I'm struggling to understand her. It's just not, it doesn't make for a reading experience that flows. Does that make sense? Like, I like for this kind of fiction to have sort of window pane type prose where I'm not noticing it. I'm just like, can get into the story, and the prose of this keeps interrupting me being able to get into the story. But anyway, I'll keep going, because like I said, I don't find this to be like terrible. It's not, for this project, it's not worth DNFing over. Like, Lord knows, if I got through the Winter at Death's Hotel, I can get through this. Like, that's not the problem. It's more just, I just don't think it's very accomplished writing, and that's going to make it less enjoyable of a read. Ugh. Guys, this book is awful. It's not awful in the same way as Winter at Death's Hotel or even Passenger to Frankfurt. It's just so fucking boring. Like, I can barely make myself read it. Like, I can only read like a few pages at a time because I'm so bored. It is so, I finally figured out with the writing what the problem is. It is completely telling instead of showing, like, and everything is at the surface level. Like, no subtext exists in this book. I don't, like, it's rare that I've read a book like this. It reads a lot like amateur, like very amateurish writing. I feel really bad saying this, but like, it just feels, it reminds me a lot of fan fiction, to be honest, like fan fiction that's not well done, because it just feels just so surface level. And like, again, I'm a little meh about how to say this because I don't want to be ageist or like rude, but I don't think that this author has talked to anyone under 40 in maybe 20 to 30 years. I just don't, like, anybody who is not, like, retirement age just reads like a caricature, or like just not believably. It's just not good. And then the people who are retirement age, many of them are caricatures as well. I think I just, like, because I am the age that some of these characters are, I'm just like, who, like, I don't know. They don't really read like people. I guess maybe that's really what it is. Nobody in this book reads like a real person. It's so deathly dull. It's so boring. I mean, like, the setup is that you are having, like, there's like a weekend, not even a weekend, I think like a week-long, like, cooking thing at this bed and breakfast, and the main character and her best friend have gone up to this fancy hotel thing because the best friend is rich, and, like, they may start, like, traveling together. The best friend is divorced. The main character, she is a widow. And there's a lot of enigmatic references to her late husband. So I don't know if in the other books you find out more about him. But, so that's the thing. So they're up there for this cooking class, and there's all these people at this little bed and breakfast. And, you know, there's, like, the comings and goings and the dramas of people, like, checking in and out, and, like, hijinks over a dog. And then somebody gets a call about, like, this rock star Artemis killing herself, and, like, you know, death and hijinks ensue from there. It's just, like, it's real boring and real bad is what this boils down to. Like, it's so uninteresting that it's like a chore. It's a real chore to get through. And I'm not sure if I dislike this more than, I probably do dislike this more than Passenger to Frankfurt. I'm probably more disappointed in Passenger to Frankfurt because that's Agatha Christie, but, like, this is worse. Yeah, it's not good. So I'll check in with you once I find out who done it. It's gonna be a real barn burner. And, you know, I am very invested in who done it. Who killed people. I could give a shit. I do not care at all who did this. Please put me out of my misery. Okay. Finally, this book has come to an end. Oh man, I feel like I need to pull a Stefan. Like, this book had everything. It has fires, it has snakes, it has retiree cooking classes, a deputy named Buster. Yeah, it has everything. This book was not good. And I'm struggling with how to figure out rating-wise what to do with it, because, like, I have certainly read worse. Like, this is quality-wise better than a lot of, like, the Kindle Unlimited trash I read, but I don't think that stuff has aspirations to be anything more than what it is, whereas I think this does have those aspirations. So I struggle because I think it fails in those aspirations, like, spectacularly. And in that sense, I feel like I should give it, like, a 1.5. I do think I ended up enjoying it less than Passenger to Frankfurt. I know that was a kind of open question that I had. I don't like this as much as I like Passenger to Frankfurt, so I need to figure out what I ended up giving that one. I think I gave it a 1.5. So I guess I could give this also a 1.5. It's just, like, so dull. The writing is bad. The characters are not interesting. It doesn't have anything unique or fun about it. It also does something in a, like, secluded house or hotel or whatever mystery that I don't like, which is to take the investigation out of the house or the inn. Like, I wanted everything to be at the hotel and it wasn't, and I didn't like that, just because that's just a personal preference thing, but that diminished my enjoyment. The characters are boring and poorly drawn. I mean, like, there's just very little to recommend this particular novel, unfortunately, so yeah, I didn't enjoy it. If you like, I feel a little weird saying this, but if you like cozy mysteries, you might like this, because this does remind me of some of the lesser cozy mysteries that I've read in terms of, like, writing style and quality and characters. I'm not saying this about all cozy mysteries, because there certainly are ones that are better than this, but that's a genre that I only really like if it's a good version of it, and this is just not. And I think that the cover leads you to think it's more along the lines in terms of quality or in terms of what it's doing as something like Sherry Lapina's An Unwanted Guest. Like, if you look at the cover, I'll insert it here. If you look at the cover, you look at that, and it doesn't read as something super pulpy. It reads as something more like commercial, like higher commercial fiction, I think. And I don't think it lives up to that. So anyway, that was a lot of rambling. Guys, that was so boring. that was a real slog to get through. So I'm actually quite excited for this last one, Swimming Home, because it is only 165 pages. And I think that even if I don't end up loving it, I think it will be a more interesting lack of enjoyment than this one was, if that makes sense. So stay tuned. We only have one more book in this little project. Guys, I thought I was gonna end this on a high note, but I don't think I'm going to. I mean, I'm only like 30 pages in, so maybe, but this is another book I don't like. The writing is very nice. At least it's well written. It's just the kind of literary fiction I don't really like, which is like fancy rich people kind of just like sitting around having problems. Not my favorite. Yeah, like we kick it off with some kind of affair, then we have people who are staying in a house and a naked woman shows up in their swimming pool and they invite her to stay. Sure, why not? Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, it's only like 150 pages, 170, something like that. So like, I will definitely finish this book, but I don't think I'm gonna love it and I'm real sad. Guys, we have come to the end of the road. I finished my last pick for this lovely little challenge, and I'm not quite sure how to rate this. I would give it either a 2.5 or a 3 star because I did not really like it. So like in terms of did I enjoy this? Not really. Do I understand why it got nominated for the Man Booker? Yeah. Do I think that it's a perfectly like accomplished book? Yes, I think it has some interesting things happening. Like, I don't really want to get into the plot too much. I think I already told you guys sort of the setup, because it's such a short novel, and for literary fiction, I think a lot, because it's so light on plot, I feel like you should sort of discover what plot there is for yourself. I guess I'll just say, in addition to what I already told you, the couples that are staying in this French, like, villa thing in Nice, are a famous Holocaust survivor who is like a famous poet, and his war reporter wife and their teenage daughter. Also, this is set in 1994, BT dubs. So there's them, and then they have another couple, Laura and Mitchell, who are there staying with them also at the villa, and then like I told you guys, this naked woman shows up. Her name is Kitty Finch. She is a botanist for reasons unknown. Like, I'm not really sure why the author chose to make her a botanist. I'm sure there's some sort of symbolic deep meaning. She shows up and she like is, I believe, bulimic, and she has like depression, and she's just been released, I think, from like a mental asylum. So like there's a lot of kind of reflection on mental illness in this novel. There's also, I think, interesting subversion of the male gaze in this novel because of Kitty. I think, like, her walking around nude all the time and sort of, like, I think that there's kind of undercutting her overt sexuality in a way that I thought was interesting. What else did I like about this? I mean, like, I just think it's, like, it would be very, very easy to write a college paper about this book, if that makes sense. That's the kind of book it is. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of thematic weight that you could deal with here. There is, and what I choose to believe is an amazing reference to Glenn Close in Fatal Attraction with something that happens. I really like that. I really like there's like this older woman who like basically calls Kitty out on her bullshit. Like, I like her a lot. And again, I think there's some interesting contrast in terms of like a woman kind of in the height of her sexuality versus a woman who's sort of like withered and like what our perceptions of them and their value are. Like, there's a lot just like literary analysis 101 you can do with this novel. So like in that respect, I respect it. It's well written. It's something that's I can admire. I just didn't enjoy it. I read a Goodreads review after I finished it where if I remember, I'll try to link it below. It's basically, she was saying like, I get it, but this felt very cold to me. And I would agree with that. Like, I just didn't really connect with this book on an emotional level at all. So all I could do was read it and be like, yeah, this is admirable. This is fine. So like I said, I would leave it at a 2.5 or a 3. I think I'll probably go with a 2.5 just because I didn't enjoy it. And also because I thought the epilogue was just like weird and bullshit and like tonally odd. I would be interested if like there's some sort of deep analysis about why she chose to do what she did in the epilogue. Yeah. So that is kind of where we leave the vlogging piece of things, because I have now read all 5 books, and really only one of them did I very much enjoy. But let's regroup later and kind of debrief and do a wrap up. Okay, so you saw how that went. Not great. That's just the bottom line, not great. So I wanted to kind of wrap up and reflect on this experience, because I do feel like I learned some things from this, and I have taken some actions as a result of this. I've also, you know, recommitted myself to some things. So anyway, let's talk about this. In terms of just like purely ranking these titles, I'm going to say that unquestionably, without a doubt, the one that I enjoyed the most was Laura Lamont's Life and Pictures by Emma Straub. I talked about that one in my check-in. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. It was a book that I enjoyed. It was really well written. I found it engaging. I cared about the characters. Like, it was a good book, a little bit better than average for me, because I would consider a 3-star to be meets expectations. So it slightly exceeded my expectations, and I would 100% read something else from Emma Straub in the future. Basically, it just wasn't like, I wasn't super immersed, I wasn't super engaged in it, and I think that the tropes it was dealing with, I learned something in terms of it not being my fave, in terms of like a fading Hollywood starlet and like her tragic rise and fall. It moves me too much, it hits me too much in the feels, so it's just not my favorite. But unquestionably, that was my favorite thing that I read. Coming in at number 2 would certainly be Swimming Home by Deborah Levy. This is a book mostly, I think, as I was just telling you guys in the vlog, it's not that it was bad, it was very well written, and again, I think if you are a college student who needs to write a paper about a book that subverts the male gaze or uses water metaphors and like water imagery extensively, this is your book. Like, it has a lot of that. It was a beautiful novel, like, but I felt very clinical about it. You know what, that's a good word. It felt very clinical to me in terms of like, check, 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 here's how you have a good literary fiction novel. Like, it felt like a Man Booker shortlist book. I don't know if any of that made sense, but it definitely felt that way to me, and therefore I didn't fully connect with it, but I definitely admired it. I ended up giving it a 2.5 star just because I didn't personally enjoy it all that much, even though I admired it, and I did think that the epilogue was kind of a weird sellout, slash I just didn't get it in terms of the relation to the rest of the book. So we ended up at 2.5 stars there, but I would say that already, just coming into number 2 slot, I'm already at books that I didn't actually enjoy, but books that I just thought were fine. So that's not great. Of these 5 books, really only one of them I enjoyed, which was my number 1 pick at 3.5 stars, Laura Lamont's Life and Pictures. Okay, and now we've crossed over from like, enjoyed, meh, it was okay, didn't particularly like it, just kind of so-so. We're officially into did not like it, actively did not enjoy myself territory. Interestingly, this book that is at the number 3 slot is a 1.5 star, and that is Passenger to Frankfurt by Agatha Christie. So in terms of the ones that we have left, it definitely is the one that I enjoyed the most of the 3, but as you saw in the reading vlog, while I was reading it, I was not enjoying it. Like, it was a chore to get through. It's the only Agatha Christie book I've ever read that I actively was having a bad time while reading it. I talked about what the problems I had with it in my other video, so you can look at that there. But basically, I just felt like there was some real just tonal mismatch. I felt like it was very unbelievable, and I felt like the prose did not have the like je ne sais quoi, joie de vivre kind of Agatha Christie zhuzh that I like. It felt bad. Like, it just felt like not a good Agatha Christie novel. So that comes in the middle though. Like, it's still Agatha Christie, so there were still obviously moments of enjoyment that I got from it, because there would be flashes of what I do like about Agatha Christie in it. And it wasn't like particularly offensive. I mean, like, the Nazi stuff in here is weird, not great. A possible son of Hitler who escaped. Like, anyway. That stuff is not great, but overall, in comparison to what we will get to, like, it's not that it's problematic, it's just not good, if that makes sense. So that was definitely number 3, and that was a 1.5 star. Okay, and then the same star rating for Death at Breakfast, 1.5 stars, as I gave for Passenger to Frankfurt. I mean, I ranked them the same in terms of the stars I gave them, but in terms of, like, on a page-to-page level, which I had a better time reading, I would definitely say Passenger to Frankfurt. It at least attempted the sort of light like rompy tone of an Agatha Christie action book. It just failed in my opinion. Death at Breakfast is like honestly one of the most boring books I've ever read. It was basically a book that was all telling and no showing. It had weird sentence flow, which I think I mentioned in the vlog. Like the sentences did not flow in a way that I felt like was pleasing to read or conducive to being immersed in the text. And it's commercial fiction, and commercial fiction should be fun to read. Like, if you're gonna be bored in a book but push yourself through it, have it be something like literary fiction where at least you're like, you know what, I'm not here necessarily to be entertained by this particular book, like I'm more like enriching myself or like being moved by this. Like that's how I feel about some nonfiction that I read, of like, I'm a little bit bored but like I want to have read this because this information is important to me. Like, no, this is a murder mystery. Like, why am I having a bad time during a murder mystery? That is unacceptable to me, and like, I feel very indignant about it. As I said, I don't think that this is a book that would be a complete fail for everyone. Like, I could believe that somebody enjoyed this and like had a good time reading it. I am just not that reader. And I think that it's a self-published kind of pulpy quality, and I don't think that's the book it's actually trying to be, and so therefore it is a failure. Things that know that they're pulpy and like that's what they're going for, that doesn't bother me, but that's not what this is. Like, this is attempting like a higher level of commercial fiction writing, and in my opinion it just really fails at that. And then we come to it, unquestionably the worst book that I read in this project, and that is Winter at Death's Hotel by Kenneth M. Cameron. I actively hate this book. It is the worst book that I've read so far this year. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Just alone, the intensity of the aggression towards women that is dripping on every page of this book in a way that does not feel like it is purely a part of the narrative, that feels like it is a part of the authorial attitude, would be enough. There's also queer baiting, there's also bury your gays, there's also like not like other girls. There's just like, it has all the problems and I just hate it. It doesn't feel historically, like it doesn't read like a fun immersive historical novel. It's not like you can pass off some of these foibles as like, oh, it's accurate to the time, even though I'm sure some of it is. It doesn't feel accurate to the time because it doesn't feel like a historical, like a believable historical novel that is achieving a sufficient amount of verisimilitude for the historical time period for me to give it a pass on its problematic elements. So yeah, I really hated that book is what that boils down to. Blech. May God not have mercy on that. So no mercy for you. This is a terrible book. Please don't read it. It's not good. Okay, so that's the ranking of the books that I read, and like, so let's get into the things that I learned from this project. I learned a few things. Number one, I have come to the conclusion that if I am looking at putting a book on my Goodreads TBR, and it is some version of genre fiction, be it mystery, fantasy, whatever, if it has under, I think I decided the cutoff was gonna be 3.4 stars, I'm not gonna put it on my TBR. Like, the only way it would go on there is on an exception basis, and here's why. I think what I have learned from this is that if people say that genre fiction is bad, it is probably pretty bad, and that's because people do, I think, tend to be more forgiving about genre fiction and tend to give genre fiction higher ratings. I think people basically just take into account the level of quality it's supposed to have and judge accordingly. So like, people I don't think in general are rating genre fiction the same way they are literary fiction or nonfiction, because I think the way that they're rating it is much more on like, did I enjoy this? That's my guess based on this project, is like, did I enjoy this? Did I have fun reading it? And if the answer is no, like, what are you doing? Because that is like the main purpose of genre fiction, is to like have a good time. And like, you know, there's varying qualities within genre fiction. There's certainly literary genre fiction out there, and maybe that's a separate discussion, but in general, I'm going to cut my genre fiction off at 3.4 stars, and I'm gonna have to have a pretty compelling reason to add it to my TBR if it has less than that. So I already went through, did a cleanup. So here are the books that I removed from my TBR as a result of this project. Alice Payne Arrives, The Reservoir, Bloodprint, The Anatomist Apprentice, The Death of Donna Whalen, I Do Not Trust You. I kind of love that title, but yeah. I Do Not Trust You, Mystery in White, and The Library of Shadows. Okay, I removed all of those because they are some version of genre fiction and they had less than 3.4 stars. So I feel good about that. So with this reading project, plus the weeding out I did to get to my TBR, plus that, I would say that from this, I have removed like 20 to 30 books from my TBR. I think that's awesome. Like, if nothing else, this was worth it just to like weed out some of the dross and like clear the decks a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, Mama still has like more than 1,000 books on that Goodreads TBR list, but like, you know what? Every little bit helps. So that is one takeaway I have, is some cleanup from what I have, and I think some guidelines of how to add things in the future. Another takeaway I have is about literary fiction. So I am going to echo what I think some other people who have done this challenge have found, which is that I think literary fiction with low ratings is much more YMMV, because I think that so much of it is based on individual preference in terms of writing voice and subject matter. So what I'm going to take from this project is that because there's sort of a variable, like a heightened variable aspect from what I can tell for literary fiction, if there's one that's low rated on Goodreads that's on my TBR, I'm probably gonna read like a sample chapter from Amazon or from the library or whatever, and based on that determine if it actually belongs on my TBR, because with both Laura Lamont's Life and Pictures and Deborah Levy, I was able to tell very quickly the degree to which they were gonna work for me. And so I think I should lean into that finding and say, like, if you're not sure about literary fiction, read a chapter and go from there. And then finally, I think my other takeaway from this is basically that, like, I should trust myself when I DNF things, because I am pretty quick on the trigger on DNFing. Like, if I'm 10% in and not enjoying, I will, unless I have a reason to keep going, like this project, bitch is gone. Like, I feel like there's so many books that I want to read, like, so many books I want to read. There's so little time to do it, and I just do not want to waste my time on things that I'm not fully enjoying. Reading is a hobby. It's my #1 hobby. If I'm not having fun doing it, what the fuck am I even doing? Do you know what I mean? So like, I think that this really affirmed to me that like I can and should trust my gut when it comes to when I should DNF something, because in all of these cases I would have, well, okay, with the exception of Laura Lamont's Life and Pictures, I would have kept going with that one. But 4 out of the 5 of these, if I was following my gut, I would have immediately DNF'd and kept it punching. So I think that that is a very valuable lesson to take away from this, which is basically like, trust your gut when it comes to continuing on with a book that you're not liking. So yeah, I think that concludes our journey here. Would I recommend somebody do this? I absolutely would. I mean, as much as I did not enjoy most of my time reading these books, I do really feel like I learned about myself as a reader. I think that I got some clarity about like kind of guiding principles for myself. And yeah, I enjoyed this process of doing the challenge. Like, the books weren't enjoyable, but the challenge was, if that makes sense. So if this is something that you've been thinking about doing, I would tell you to go for it. I think it's totally a worthwhile project. Now, if you are not filming a video of it, like, maybe space them out so that you don't have as many bad books that you have to read at once, which is sort of the situation I got into. But anyway, so I would definitely recommend this. I think this is a valuable endeavor, and I commend it to you if it sounds appealing. So yeah, guys, thank you for joining me on this epic quest to read the lowest rated books on my Goodreads TBR. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I really enjoyed this as a challenge, even if I didn't enjoy the book, so yeah. Thumbs up, would recommend. If you guys have done this challenge or have any thoughts about the books I talked about, definitely let me know in the comments. Yeah, it's been a journey, so let me know any thoughts you have. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. And I will just talk to you soon. Hope you're having a good one. Bye!